Welcome to season 2 of the Collect Your Life Incorporated podcast. This is episode 1. This episode is called Mother to Mother. Mother's Day is approaching. Mother to Mother, dealing with children with disabilities. And I have my good friend Ashley Wallace with me. Ashley, say hi.
Hello.
So, we're just going to talk about our perspective and our experience as mothers with children with disabilities. And I'm going to let Ashley go first. Just whatever you want to say about, how has so far, what is your child diagnosed with? What is the challenges?
Okay.
How has it made you feel? How have other people treated you? Just express whatever you want to express about this experience so far.
Okay. So I'll start with, so Aiden is 2. He just turned 2 in March. This has been a humbling yet eye-opening experience. I've always been like one of those type of people that was super sensitive to just people with disabilities. Just, my background working in the pharmacy and the healthcare field. I've never really been knowledgeable and super sensitive to kids with disabilities. So this was new territory for me, having a child with a disability. I would just say, let me just start from the beginning, finding out about Aiden's diagnosis. When I was pregnant, I didn't have a bad pregnancy. I had some complications. One of the biggest complications that I had was I had a lot of fluid around Aiden's sac in my stomach. And so when I was about 30 weeks pregnant, I had to go to the doctor every single week because they needed to check on Aiden, check on me. They said since Aiden was super active in my stomach, we needed to make sure he didn't bust a sac or whatever, and none of the excess fluid, because it could cause danger to the baby. So didn't think about anything. I also had a hernia while I was pregnant as well. It caused pain. I bled a lot. Outside of that, the pregnancy was not bad. I did not know that I was going to have a son with Down syndrome prior to. I didn't do the testing. They didn't even ask me if I wanted to do the testing, which I would have thought they would have. But they say at 35, they start asking you. I was only 31 when I was pregnant with Aiden. So Aiden came late. He was a week late. I did a scheduled C-section, and C-section, everything went fine. I had Aiden. When he was born, he had I guess you can say, a big bump over his eye, and he could barely open his eye, and it concerned me. And so they told me that some babies have that when they're born. It's okay. Well, every time a nurse came in the room, I'm constantly like, y'all sure my baby okay? I'm asking, does he need medicine? Does he need an ointment or cream or anything? And they're like, no, he's fine. So finally, not the next day, because I had him early that morning. When another shift came in that night, she said that she was going to write a note to the doctor to see if they could get him some cream. And they did. And it instantly started going down. So my baby needed some cream the whole time. So as mothers, if y'all are listening, I just want y'all to know, always advocate for your child. And you'll probably hear me say that a few times in this podcast for different situations. So I'm up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm holding my baby. I'm just looking at him, and I don't know why. I don't know if God put this on my heart or in my spirit. Something said research Down syndrome. Seriously, don't know why. I was just looking at him and I was thinking he doesn't look like his brother when he was born. He doesn't look like the other children in our family. And we all, like, we have strong genes. We all look alike. So it was just a little concerning to me. And I just researched Down syndrome, and it said ways to know if your child has Down syndrome is the space between their eyes. I'm looking at his eyes, check. Small ears, I'm looking at his ears, check. It says all of the fingers are the same length and they're kind of wide, check. It says there's a space between the big toe and the second toe, check. Slanted eyes, check. I'm like, oh my God, my baby may have Down syndrome. So I called a nurse in the room and I was like, what's the process of getting your child tested for Down syndrome? And she looked at me with like the most horrific, like ugliest look ever. And then like I felt so guilty. Like I literally cried. And she was like, what would make you say this about this beautiful baby boy? Like, why are you asking for this? And so I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm crying. I'm in tears. Like I truly did not know, y'all. I did not know. And so she was like, well, I'll put it in the notes so when the doctor on call comes around tomorrow, they can decide what they want to do. So a new shift came in that morning. The nurse came to me and she told me that she had saw in the notes that I asked for this test. And she told me that she didn't know what time the doctor was coming around for the day and that she would update me on the process and what would happen. But she also told me, she was like, Mom, the day that Aiden was born, the first nurse that came around to help you with breastfeeding, she mentioned we may want to get him tested. Nobody said anything to me. They overlooked those notes. Nobody said anything. So I'm like, so this nurse last night made me feel so bad about this, but somebody else saw it too.
Right.
So the doctor came around, not that day, but the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So mind you, this day, they're having a hard time getting blood from Aiden. He was borderline jaundice, and his blood platelet counts were super low. So when it's super low like that, they can't get blood work and they can't circumcise him. So they're like, you're going to have to stay an extra day if you want him to get circumcised because we can't do it with his blood platelets being this low. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Do what you got to do. So the nurse never came that day. I mean, not the nurse, the doctor never came that day. The doctor came the next day. So she came in and she was just kind of like, I've spoken to the nurse. I've read the notes. She came, held Aiden. She looked at him. She was like, Mom, he doesn't really fit the profile to me, but I can see. She was like, he does have like the small ears and the slanted eyes, but you'll be surprised at babies that come out the same way and they're super, like it's fine, nothing's wrong. So I'm like, okay, gave me hope. Because thinking about it, I don't know why my mind said to Google Down syndrome. Like literally did not know. Right. So they ended up getting a test done or whatever, and I didn't. So this is on a Saturday. They discharged us on a Sunday. I had to wait until the doctor's appointment on the 3-day checkup to get the test results. So they were like, yes, Mom, he does have that extra chromosome. He does have trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome. And like at that point, my whole world shook. Yeah. Nobody in my family saw what I saw. They questioned why I thought this as well. My husband and I kind of exchanged words about it too. And the whole time I was right. So immediately I went into action. Like, what do I need to do? What happens next? I didn't want to prolong anything. I didn't want to be that parent in denial because it's easy to be like, oh, this is my precious baby. And you let things slide. But all in all, your child needs help.
Right.
So that was that process. So I had Aiden at the beginning of the pandemic. So Aiden was born March 25th. The pandemic started like mid-March. So none of those services were offered at the time.
Yeah.
So we really couldn't do anything. He couldn't see any therapist, nothing. No early intervention was offered. None of that. So we just took him home. We cared for our baby, the way we care for him. And then I want to say like around the time he was 5 months, those services opened back up. And we immediately got him into OT, which is occupational therapy. And he got special instruction. So we're in Mississippi. So I think like what they call special instruction in Mississippi is different than what they have in Memphis. So it was a major adjustment for me because, as mom, you're just thinking like, I didn't know what I was up against.
Yeah.
I didn't know the delayments and what he needed from me or what he needed from the other therapists. Like, it was new for me. So, once I finally had the courage to make the post about it on Facebook, I had a bunch of people to hop in my inbox and offer support that I didn't even know I needed.
Right.
And that kind of stirred me in the right direction. And I would just say that living with a child with disability is truly a gift because it humbles you. It teaches you that, for me, it taught me it's not always about me. Of course, being a mom, you learn it's not always about you because you have this little person. But when you have a child with a disability, it's a totally different level because you have to extend so much to them to be what they need for you to be because they can't be there for themselves.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, normal babies, they find their way on their own.
Yeah.
With a child with disability, you have to guide them on a path and on their way.
Yeah.
So, I would say, my experience it was a little difficult because, you just being honest, you go through those thoughts of why me? And did I do something wrong? Did I eat something?
Yeah.
Did I drink something? Like what did I do? Like, am I not healthy?
Yeah.
Is dad not healthy? Like I went through all of that. Like having a baby in a pandemic, I think gives PTSD in itself because you can't have anybody with you but one person.
Yeah.
My mom couldn't be with me. My sister couldn't be with me. None of my friends could come in the hospital. We got this extended stay. Like, it was truly a traumatic experience for me. And then when I came home, I can't see nobody. I'm scared for anybody to come around us.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about COVID and, what's going to happen. I'm even thinking about if I go to the grocery store, will I bring something back to my child? If dad goes to work, will he bring something back? So it truly was a traumatic experience for me. So now fast forward, life is a little bit normal in the pandemic world and, Aiden's older. We got, at this point, like now, Aiden has 4 therapists. He has physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and he has special instruction. So that's a lot in itself. Not only does he have 4 therapists, he has 5 different specialists that he goes to as well.
Wow.
And we have to see those specialists every 3 to 6 months. Just to look after other health conditions and other things that's going on with him and just staying on top of it. So I would just say, my experience taught me to, I guess, lean on my village more because I'm just one of those people where I'm so strong-minded. I can do it all.
Yeah.
But having a child with a disability, you really cannot.
Yeah.
You cannot do it all. You need help. You need support. You
Yeah.
gotta lean on other people.
Gotcha.
All of the therapists have to work together. All of the doctors have to work together.
Yeah.
It's like this is a team of people for your one child that needs them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's kind of like where we are now.
Okay. So with me, and thank you, Ashley, for that. With me, mine is a little different. So Carrie was born a little early. She was due June 6th of 2019, but she came, well, yeah, we had a C-section May 8th, and that's when she came. But I went into the doctor because my blood pressure was up. I kept having headaches, and my doctor was like, he already had me on labetalol for like the last, leading up to Carrie being born. He had me on labetalol for blood pressure from like week 30. So I would say from like week 29 to up until the time I had Carrie. So I was on blood pressure medicine from week 29 to up until I had Carrie, 35 weeks, 5 days. And so I had her early. And you hear Aiden in the background because we're mommies out here, so we gotta do what we gotta do. So if you hear Aiden, just excuse it, because
he doesn't want us to talk while he's watching TV, you guys.
Because we're moms. So I went in for a routine, and I'm a diabetic. So like at the time when we got closer after 32 weeks, my doctor was like, "Well, I'm gonna see you every 2 weeks." Just in case, because as a diabetic, anything can change. I wasn't high risk yet, but he was just trying to see. My pregnancy was pretty okay. It was real painful in the beginning because of my fibroids. Like, I literally had to go to the ER during the second trimester because I could not walk. Like, those fibroids were flaring up with the pregnancy. Yeah. And they were I was feeding the fibroids, basically. The fibroids were growing more than Carrie was. So they were stealing all the nutrients from my baby. So my baby was little. Like, people saw my stomach. They were like, "Oh, you're going to have a big baby. She's going to be 9 pounds." And I was thinking to myself, no, Carrie weighs in at 3 pounds. Like, this was back like before she was born, of course. And so she was born. I went to the doctor for a routine checkup. And they were like, "Oh, your fluid's low." And Carrie was in position at 28 weeks. She was already head down at 28 weeks. She had, then I had low fluid, and then my blood pressure was 140. They were like, "He gonna admit you to the hospital." And I was like, "You mean," like, I was so dumb. I wasn't ready. I was in shock. I was like, "You mean I'm going to the hospital today?" Like, I hadn't eaten nothing since lunch. I'm a teacher, and I literally was trying to like get like a week off from school before I had Carrie, like, because we were coming up to like the end of school. So I was like, "Well, doctor," asking my doctor, "Can he give me write me off, whatever," not knowing that I just taught on the 7th, and I'm literally going into hospital that day, and they were like, "You gonna have your baby sometime." And I was like, "Wait, this week?" Like, I was in shock. I was not registering it. And my pregnancy, emotionally, it was stressful. Like, from my job, I was going through stuff like unnecessary stress, and then from my home environment, I was going through stuff. So I was stressed. So my blood pressure was rightfully so. I've never had a blood pressure issue. I never had to take a blood pressure pill. Had diabetes, but that's the only issue I had. My blood pressure was always immaculate. And so pregnancy, and the stress, of course, triggered blood pressure issues. So I ended up, I guess, with what people call preeclampsia. Yes, Aiden. And so I ended up with what people call preeclampsia, and I had to be admitted. And my blood, as soon as I got to the hospital, because I'm like, okay, I'm finna have anxiety and all this stuff coming up. And so my blood pressure is increasing. It went from 140, then it's going to 160, it's going to 180, it's going to 190, and it was a lot. And my mom, thank God for her, she was my advocate, because I told her, I was just prepping her, because I was looking at other stuff. I know how they do Black mothers a lot of times, and I didn't have a doula at the time, which I know for whenever I have another child, I do want one in addition to my OB. Yes. But I was like, "Mama, if these folks act crazy with me, don't do anything, please advocate for me. Like, please do that. And I told that to my ex-husband, but it really didn't resonate. So my mom took care of it, because it was a nurse that came in there. She was just like, oh, your blood. She wasn't my nurse, but she was like turning off the beeper or something, or the beeping noise, and she was just like, she was like, oh, your blood pressure's high. Mom was like, she knows that you're not making it any different. You're not making it better to tell her that that's what she's in here for. She knows that. Like, that's not necessary. You're adding stress to it.
Yeah.
And so, like, my mom went to the nurse manager and told her, don't let that lady come in my baby room no more. And they had me on magnesium. I'm tasting this metallic taste. And then my doctor comes in. He was like, so we having a baby. And I was like, okay, so what are the steps? Because we had talked about, like, I could have had a, vaginal, like, because diabetics have a vaginal birth. People with fibroids have vaginal births all the time. Like, it's not an issue. I don't have to necessarily have a C-section. But something in me, when he was like, be induced and you can wait a few days or have a C-section. And it was like, something in me was like, say C-section. Go ahead. Your fluid already low. Your blood pressure up.
Thinking to rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah. And so I was like, Lord, I think this is what I should do. And thankfully I did, because I ended up having to get fibroids removed after Carrie was removed. So after Carrie was out, she was good. I'm loving on my baby. And my doctor is telling the other doctor that my uterus is too large. Like, it won't close. He can't close my uterus. And he was like, I'm not giving her a hysterectomy and all that. And I was just like, wait, what?
What's going on?
Like, what's going on? And so he did tell me, like, that the fibroids were in the way, so they removed 4, and they grew with the pregnancy. Like, because at the time when I first got pregnant, my fibroids were the size of my fingernail. But by the time I had my baby, they were the size of a large navel orange. Wow. And it was like 4 of them that were that size. So they were getting all the nutrients. My child was only 5 pounds, 1 ounce. And so they were getting they were why I was so big. So I lost a lot of blood. I was already anemic by definition. So I lost even more blood. And then they finally closed me up. They didn't, I got my uterus still, don't have a hysterectomy. There's still maybe like 2. He was like, I'm going to leave these 2 because they're on the scar. They're on the, the edge, and I don't want to scar your uterus lining on the inside. So they were like close to, and they were smaller. So he was like, I'm going to leave those in there. And then I think like a year later or so, I had a checkup and those shrunk back. So pregnancy just aggravated my fibroids. So basically, get Carrie. She's the prettiest baby that I've seen. She was borderline jaundice too. She had amniotic fluid in one ear, and so she passed in one ear when they did the hearing test, but she didn't in the other. And then we had to come back the next, and she passed, no problem. So I was like, okay, don't hearing issues, nothing like that, not jaundice anymore, yada, yada, yada. So we go about, life with her. Right. And everything is fine. Go to her go to a pediatrician. There's no problems. This was the same pediatrician I had. He caught my diabetes as a 12-year-old when I got it. So I'm like, yeah, I got he's just a little older, but he's good. Doctor. I got a great doctor. So 9 months hit. And like the papers you get on your child, it's like a little, I can't remember the exact acronym for it, but it's some type of worksheet that they fill out for your child's development. And Carrie wasn't crawling at all. And this was 9 months. And it was kind of alarming to me, but I was on survival mode. And I say I was on survival mode because I was, because of my surroundings in my with my ex-husband. So I was just like, maybe because she didn't like tummy time, but I was like, well, maybe, that's just her.
She's just being stubborn.
Yeah. Because she was a spoiled baby. Like, people would hold her. They loved holding her. Physical touch was her love language, or it still is now. I was just like, it's just that. And so he was like, oh, she's not crawling. Okay, well, not all babies crawl, which is true. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So we go to the 12-month. I go to the 12-month thing. She still hasn't walked. She still hasn't crawled. He still didn't say anything. I go to 15 months. She hasn't walked yet. And I'm like, well, babies can walk at 18 months. Maybe that's when my baby will walk. And she didn't. She hadn't at 15 months. And so by just a conversation with my friend, I was talking to her about, like, just cost of stuff. Because at this time, the pandemic is hit. Like, she was 9 months. When she was 9 months, that was February of 2020. And then the pandemic hit in March. And so she turned 1 in the pandemic. We had virtual stuff. And, so, like, by the time she's 15 months, that's when I have to go back to work. But I have to put her in daycare. So then my friend, we were talking. And she was like, well, have you heard about, Tennessee early intervention services? And I was like, okay, let me look it up. And so I looked it up. I called them. They did like an interview over the phone. They did an evaluation. And it was the same. I said, wait, this sounds like I'm just remembering this is the same thing that the doctors do. She said, yeah, the doctors do that. I said, so are you telling me that her doctor should have told me about TEIS early on, like at 9 months, when she wasn't crawling, when she wasn't everything? Right. She said, yeah, they should have told you. Like, it's like, I'm a teacher. It's like an IEP to a teacher to tell, like, this parent, like, you need to get your child tested. Like, you need to get your child this. Your child needs an IEP because they're having difficulty learning or something like that early on, telling them. So I'm like, so he really, and so I had to, like, literally just fire him and find another doctor. Because at this point, I'm like, okay, well, Carrie, my main thing was speech and physical. Because she was saying a few words, but she wasn't saying that much. And so then she wasn't walking. We're still 18 months. She wasn't walking. And so I know because she was a late preemie that her sensory too, that it could be a factor why, because she would be on her tiptoes a lot. And she still walks on her tiptoes to this day. Even though she's walking, she's on her tiptoes because of the sensory, whatever it is. And so I was like, well, maybe that's why she didn't like tummy time, and she still has yet to crawl to this day. It's just not what she did. So we go through physical therapy, and then I had to like Ashley said, I had to advocate for Carrie because her physical therapist, the first one, it just wasn't a fit. She wasn't speaking life into my child. She was not providing positive. It was just like real kind of negative, and I did not like her spirit. It was not what my child needed. Carrie needed to be pushed, and she was kind of coddling some, and then she just again wasn't positive. So I was like, I need somebody else. And then I said, I also think she needs occupational as well, because she's holding her crayon, but she's like throwing it. Like, she's not really doing everything that she should. And like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, if TIS is providing all these therapies, let's go ahead and do it. Like, I'm a single parent. I'm at this point, I'm doing it by myself. So I need to get everything that whatever she can qualify for, let her get all the help she needs. And as a teacher side, I'm like, okay, I want my child to get everything. I don't want her to be behind the curve. I want her to be above. So I'm like, and she will. And that's one thing that I make sure I try to do ever since she's been a baby, try to speak over. I always speak over her pray over her, everything. So I've switched to a new physical therapist. Speech therapist was great and has been continuously great. And then I started with occupational. Just started with occupational like at the end of 2021.
Okay.
And then I also learned that she could get developmental therapy, like an inclusion teacher, to come to school and help with the teachers. Because her teachers at her school were just eager to know like what, and I loved that about them, that they wanted to know what they could do. They just didn't know what exactly they had to do to help Carrie. And so then I asked her, it was something that, like, kind of what you said, Ashley, like, I just was like, well, something told me to look up autism. And I saw some of the stuff that Carrie did, and I was like, well, let me ask her speech therapist because she's well versed in it.
Right.
And then I also asked a social worker that I know that, like, master's thesis was on autism. And they were like, well, you can get her tested for it. So I went and got her tested in November of 2021. A University of Memphis psychologist, developmental people looked at her, and they said that she has some traits, and it's like maybe one or two, but it's not. They just said she has severe developmental delays.
Okay.
And I said, okay, that helps, but we're gonna make sure that she doesn't have these developmental delays. So like Carrie has been progressing. She's signed, like, that's what we're doing in speech therapy. She's signing for more. She loves to hum and everything, and she is improving a whole lot. My thing is the guilt, because when I found out about TIS and I found out that her doctor should have notified me, I felt guilty for not seeing that she was delayed. But I didn't see that she was delayed because she was saying, "Mama,
baby."
Yeah, she was just 1 year old. So I was like, well, she will come. You know, not all
she
babies.
Has time.
And I was trying to not compare my child to somebody else. So I was just like, maybe. But I cried when I found out that it broke me. It really hurt me. And then also, like, I had to not feel ashamed of my baby. Because with other people, like, she doesn't know, they're like, well, she's not talking to me. She's not going to talk to you, baby. She has her own way of communication right now. But she will eventually talk.
Absolutely.
Like, I have to keep, like, there have been, I know people have spoken ill of my child. And I have to speak against those things that have been spoken. Like, family members or people have spoken against my baby. That's not the case. She will succeed. She will do this.
Absolutely.
And Carrie is going to school right now. She's going to start pre-K in August in the special education class, but that doesn't mean she's going to stay in a special education class. And so I felt like people thought that it was my fault, that I did something wrong. And so you deserve, you chose to be in this marriage, so this is your punishment. This is what you get. Or you should have known, or you, like, I felt that from people. And I felt like, well, dang, did I do this? Like, like,
or you had health issues, so why did you get pregnant? Why did you have a child?
Right.
And it's the guilt and the shame that they put on mothers, when honestly it has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
God makes each child differently. And I feel like he gives children with disabilities or developmental delays to the parents that he knows are going to take care of them and be there for them. We don't know why he makes children different.
Yeah, and because it's crazy, because at the lady that comes to do her inclusion, or she's like a developmental therapist in a way, but she comes to do her inclusion. There was like a mix up with at the daycare. I was like, Carrie's going to get her everything she needs to the time she turns 3, because TEIS runs out when she's 3. So I have to start doing out of pocket things, which I don't mind.
Right.
But
there's other programs, and that's one thing. Like, moms have to be educated that it does not stop at 3.
Right.
There's other programs outside of 3. We just have to find them.
Right.
And we just have to stay on top of it. And I really hate that it's that way.
Yeah.
I really hate that we have to advocate and go so hard, because I feel like the system should be built to help us.
It should be like, okay, my child is already ready. Like, Carrie is literally already registered with the state of Tennessee with an IEP, with an individual education plan. And by the state of Tennessee standards, she should be in a special education program, has developmental delays. You already know this. This is already on record. I have yet to get a contact from anybody from the state about any assistance. Like, when I say I don't get any assistance, I don't get, like, people say, well, you can get this, you can get that. I'm no, I can't, because the way my income is set up, it's a lot of stuff that some parents could get, like maybe disability or anything like that. I can't qualify for it because my income is supposedly too much above whatever curve they have. Like, even child care assistance that they're supposed to have for special ed, but there is there was a thing called Katie Beckett. I think it's like a grant. So it doesn't matter the income. You can get that and qualify for that.
And that goes beyond 3 as well.
And so I was like, well, it was thankfully her physical therapist, which I love. She told me about that. So I'm now researching and trying to apply for that and getting, those services, because again, with three therapists, that's expensive. That can be expensive. But I'm gonna do whatever I need to do for her. But people have to realize it's a lot. And if you're not dedicated to trying to make sure that your child, or if you're not advocating, sitting there doing things, like I have to ask her physical therapist, I have to ask her speech therapist. Like, at one point we were virtual because COVID was running rampant. But I would ask them, okay, so what did y'all work on so I can try to work on? Because it's just like when you send your kids to school and they're reading in class, but you're not reading with them at home. Of course, you're with your child too, so you should be doing that. It should be full circle. Like, you reading at school, they're reading at school, they're reading at home, like doing the same things, working on their letters, doing all that. It's the same with therapy and with your child with disabilities, or just a child, period. You got to make sure you're working with your child on all those developmental things. And it made me also, I'll say, it felt like people were judging me, like I was lazy, like a lazy parent, or I was just doing whatever. And I'm like, no. If anything, I do the most. Like, if anything, I had to really get out of that mindset, feeling like I was the problem or I was the issue. And I was like, this is about Carrie. If you're not gonna speak life into Carrie, and people always think that I'm shutting them down when they say stuff negative about Carrie, but I am, because
it's hurtful. Some people, it's hurtful,
and those words have weight. And so I have to come out of agreement with that, because I don't agree with what you say that she's delayed. Like, I don't agree with that. She is in a place. She's she's improving, and she's getting to the place where she needs to be.
Absolutely.
Like, she's getting to where she needs to be. She's not there yet, but she will get there. Like, it's just, I just can't, I refuse to accept that she's gonna be what the doctors and what therapists say. Like, I already believe that she's gonna be surpass whatever they say, and they're gonna be just blown out of their mind about.
And to be honest, because at this point, we become the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
We become the therapist. We become the counselors, the teachers. We are everything to them that everybody else gets paid for.
Right.
That we don't get paid for.
Yeah.
That's our job as mom.
Yeah.
To be those things to them as well, because nobody is gonna go hard for them the way that we do.
Yeah.
So we have to learn every single thing that they learn, and we have to work on the times too.
Yeah.
Because they're in our care 24/7.
Yeah.
They're in their care for 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And they move on to the next child.
Yeah.
But this is my child, so this is what I'm gonna have to do for my child every single day.
Right.
Every single day, I have to work on something different. Every single day, I have to learn something different, so I can pour it into him, and so that I can teach him, and so that everybody around me knows this is what I'm going through.
Right.
And for the longest, I kept it to myself. But when you got that village, they gotta know too, because they have to be there for your child just as much as you. So when your child is out of your care, they can help. They can assist.
Yeah.
So I share doctor's appointments. I share the information that I'm told. And you're right. Sometimes I don't get the feedback that I want to get. I don't hear what I would like to hear. Sometimes I don't feel like it's realistic what people say back to me. Yeah. Or sometimes I feel like it can even be superficial what somebody says back to me, because I'm the parent that I'm living in the moment. I'm living in the right now. And I know I stray away from statistics. I don't want to hear statistics no more. Right. Oh, by 18 months, he's supposed to do this. Quote unquote, normal kids do this at 15 months. But Down syndrome kids do it at 18 months. So now he's 20 months and he ain't did it yet. So now he's behind on both scales. Yeah. I don't want to hear that. Right. I mean, I welcome your professional opinion. Right. But if we say every child is different with normal kids, then it needs to be the same with children with disabilities. Yeah. It don't matter. The learning curve and the statistics, every child is different, period. Yeah. That's what needs to be taught. Yeah. That's what we need to talk about. Every child is different, period. Yeah. In general, regardless. And once you understand your child, then that's when you have to put in the work for your child and meet them where they are at that point in time. I like how you talked about you fired your doctor and got a new doctor. You have been with that doctor for all your life. Yeah. You'll be surprised at some of the people that don't have the courage to do that, because that's all they know. And this person means me well, and this person is good at what they do. Yeah. And this person don't mean me no harm, and I know they'll take care of my child, and they'll do this and do that. You will be surprised at the lack of knowledge that they know. Yeah. Because they ain't dealt with certain situations, and they could have been in the practice for 40 years. Yeah. And that's another thing, like making sure you advocate for yourself. Like even before Carrie was conceived, like if I had stayed at the OB I was with, I don't know if I would have. I know she would have been trifling and gave me a hysterectomy, knowing that I want to have more kids. Like because that's how insensitive she was. She told me I had fibroids, but no, she didn't tell me. Let me rephrase. The nurse told me, and she didn't walk me through whatever. She didn't say anything. She just tried to throw birth control down my throat. And so my my OB that I had that delivered Carrie sat down with me, showed me, here's where they are. He said, but I know you're trying to conceive, so you don't have to worry about birth control. They're not in the way of anything. They're not in your fallopian tubes. They just right here in the uterus chilling. Like, and they're not that big. They're not, we don't have to do anything. Like, you can just go about your day, still try to conceive. And that's what I did. So it was like,
it was good that I was able to fire the other OB. And so when I started doing that and like had to like really advocate for myself even before Carrie was born, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to do that here. So I was like, well, where is a doctor that I can go? And her doctor now, she's older, probably around the same age as the doctor that she had. But when I say I'm bringing concerns to her and she's like, okay, well, let's test her for this. Like, well, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see how this goes. Just really caring and really looking into different things for Carrie, instead of just saying, oh, well, kids don't crawl. Not all kids crawl, which is a true fact. But by 12 months, by 12 months, Carrie wasn't crawling. You should have did something.
Yeah, that should have been like an alarm.
A red flag.
Just imagine, like, sadly, just me doing research, the things that they miss with Black people that they wouldn't miss with somebody else. Because I even tell you, for me, with the fluid in my stomach and around the sac, that was a major sign for Down syndrome. Wow. And I did not know that until I did research later.
Wow.
But they say when a woman is pregnant, she has extra fluid around her stomach, and particularly around the sac. They're supposed to check to see if it's fluid behind the child's head and neck.
Oh, wow.
And that's Down syndrome. They never checked. They never ran that test.
Wow.
They took my money, though.
Yeah.
Because they had me coming every week, and I had to pay for that. Ultrasounds are super expensive. Yeah. So I had to get an ultrasound every week.
I did, too.
So y'all didn't catch that on the ultrasound, the extra fluid behind his neck? None of that. So that, and, like, I loved my doctor. And so when I said something to him about it, when I came back in for my checkup, he told me he was going to go look at the text notes and, if she was noticing it and blah, blah, blah. I looked back at his notes. But he also said to me, what would that have changed if we were able to tell you that Aiden had Down syndrome before he was born? It wouldn't have changed nothing to answer his question. But would it have prepared me? Yes.
Yes. And you could have already had, okay, let's go ahead and see what programs are available or what. Like with me, I was asking a developmental who did her evaluation with autism. I was saying, well, the stress kind of cause, developmental delays, because, she said it really is not like a cure. It's not like something that you can cause, but she said stress could have more people who had stress. And when I say I was like stressed emotionally, professionally, everywhere, like literally, I can't even go into details about everything, but know that your girl was stressed.
Right.
So I don't know if that was a factor of my child having developmental delays, but I do know at 9 months when she wasn't crawling, sir, or even 6 months, this is the same paperwork we filling out for TEIS evaluation to get evaluated for the program she's under now.
Because they ask those questions to see where your child is
developmentally. And it's the same little, I think it's called ACEs. I can't remember. It's something like that. But it's the same system. And you didn't think to go ahead and tell me about TEIS. Yes, she probably would have still had delays now, but I bet Carrie would have walked before 2 years old. And I bet also a lot of other things. But it just goes to show, again, like you said, we have to advocate. Like, I know now, like, dealing with this, I know how it has made me feel. Yes. Like, I do know, like, what to do for the next time. Like, to make sure I'm looking for these, like, I'm more alert. Yes. And I'm also making sure that I'm allowing Carrie grace, because, like, children 2 going on 3 would know, like, not to do this or not to do that, not to throw this. And Carrie does know stuff. Like, that's the thing about my child. My child,
she understands.
She knows a whole lot that she doesn't, and she'll try to act like she doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, my baby is more advanced than the people think.
Same with Aiden.
So
it's like I know how he communicates. I know with a noise or a sound, or he's not verbally communicating with me, but he communicates with me, and I know.
Yeah.
And so, like, the average person may feel like, you really think,
or that's they just yelling?
That's what he
because with Carrie, she yelling or whatever. She'll be yelling. I'm like, she's happy. She's okay. Why she crying? No, she's not crying. This is her happy. Like,
she might be fussing or just going
she ain't even fussing. She just happy. Like, when she's yelling and screaming, sometimes I can tell by the sound of it.
Aiden
it's
too.
Like,
if it's happy or same with
it's
Aiden.
a happy or a cry, like I'm finna start crying, or you need to hurry up and give me something to eat, or something like that.
Same.
Yeah.
And even with me just speaking to parents, like with different disabilities outside of Down syndrome, just learning disabilities, or in general parents with autism kids. A lot of times I'm hearing that they don't want to diagnose kids at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And they're waiting until they're 3 and 4.
Yeah.
But mom and dad already sees that something's just not right.
Right.
But they won't give them the diagnosis to get their child the help that they need and the services that they need.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that the psychologist was like, he's had people try to force a 1-year-old, and he was like, well, 1-year-old's not all the way developed. And it made sense to what he was saying, why to wait. But in essence, I was like, well, I'm not going to speak autism over Carrie.
Right.
Like, if all in the other thing is, like, all the therapists see, like, they saw, like, the one little sign, like the humming and stuff like that. But they were like, she's more verbal than most. She's not saying clear words, and she's saying something.
She's still verbal.
And so that was like a factor that to them, and they were just like, with our observation, we don't believe she is. Then when she had her evaluation for pre-K, they were saying the same thing. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to speak that she doesn't have autism.
Amen.
Like, I'm just going to keep speaking that she doesn't.
It's the process that she's going through right now. And you're getting her all of the help that she needs to go through this process. And when she gets older, you're going to look back on this moment, and it was just a thing of the past.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I was like, Carrie's going to graduate with a regular diploma. She's not going to have a special education certificate or whatever, because I think also, like, God is real, intricate, because I wasn't going into teaching. It wasn't what I was supposed to go into, but I feel like God placed me in education for a reason, so I can know and have, knew what was going to come, and knew how to say, okay, she should be in pre-K, and they got pre-K 3 for special ed, with IEPs. Okay, go ahead and put her in there. And I really haven't been sharing about Carrie's disabilities because, well, not like on a broad platform like that until now, because I wouldn't say, I was just like, I wanted to wait and see how her story unfolded. I was trying to like just give it.
But like, if there was going to be like a proper diagnosis
or something. But there hasn't been. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and tell the people. Yeah, Carrie Danielle did not walk until after 2 years old. It was her second birthday. She was on her tiptoes, and she still is on her tiptoes walking. And like, of course, with preemies, there's like some type of sensitive, like something about, I forgot what it is because I'm not a medical professional, so I don't want to mess it up.
Right.
But it's some sensory thing with preemies. Even though she was a late preemie, she still was a preemie. So they were like, that has a lot to do with it. And she may have to have like an insert in her shoes or something like that to make sure her bones are
structured
right, and then her feet are go in. They go inwards. And also the crazy thing is, I learned that her father, my ex-husband, had foot corrective surgery. Like, so a lot of those things would have made sense. To know. So it's like, if you're dating, just make sure you know about the people. Like, Make sure you know
that's true too.
that family history,
Yes,
and everything.
absolutely.
Because I think that was something that was mentioned to me maybe once. And of course, who's gonna remember that? Like one time. And so now it wasn't even, brought up again. So it's definitely something mothers just make. If mothers to be, you want to be a mother, just make sure you know the people you having a child with.
You laying down with.
And making sure you have a true partner. Like,
yes.
Or you have anything else to say?
I would just say, don't be scared to form a village. And I'm speaking from the heart because I was.
Yeah.
I literally wanted to go through this alone.
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to share nothing. I didn't want to hear nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want no pity. I just wanted to get the help that I needed for my child, be there for him, and go through it alone. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, if you're in a relationship or if you're married, you can't put everything on your spouse.
Yeah.
A mother's role and a father's role is totally different when it comes to nurturing your child.
Yeah.
You need to have other moms that's going through, if not the same,
something similar
to what you're going through, to relate, to have those conversations, to
Mommy
be able
dates.
to bounce off of each other, to get the children together. Because a lot of times, just being honest, we shelter our kids when they have delayedness or disabilities because
I didn't want her to go to school. I was like, I don't know about that. I didn't. I was really like, I guess, iffy. But actually, if I had started her going to school at 6 months, the teachers would have, because it's just like I said, TIS is just like an IEP. They would have noticed.
They would have picked up.
So it's like, dang, I should have just, because she was really spoiled. And still is, but she was really coddled and spoiled. Even at her first daycare, before she went to the second one, they were holding her all day. I was like, why are y'all holding her? Like, why? Let her, explore and everything. And it was really, having a village. And that's my thing. I do have a couple of friends that I know that have children with autism that I, reached out to, but I definitely need to, reach out to more people. And maybe, after this, I'll be able to, have other people that are free to reach out to me on Facebook or any type of social media. That would definitely be great, just because to know that you're not alone. Because, as a single parent, it's like, dang, I feel like I am alone. Because, especially if you're the parent that sees it and you're really going hard, not saying that not negating the other parent, but just saying, if you're the one that's the most
different about moms, regardless.
It's like, as a mom, whenever the baby's sick, you're always the one to care and nurture. Even at birth, it's a lot. So I definitely agree that having a village, and I have to do better with that, because I was really
closed
if it wasn't my mama, or it wasn't anyone else, I was like, or my sister, I was like, I don't know.
I'm actually literally, and Aiden just turned 2. I'm just growing out of that. So probably just in the last couple of months, I could not talk about Aiden's situation without crying.
Wow.
I'm just getting into the place to where, and I still get emotional and teary-eyed, but I could not talk about his situation without breaking down.
Yeah.
And I had to get to the bottom of that place and why I could not, and where I was. Guilt, shame, embarrassment, all these things, and I don't think it'll ever go anywhere from us as parents.
Because as mom, even if like somebody was like, even if your child was quote unquote normal, because like whatever that means, because like she's still normal anyway,
Right.
And it's like really irritating to hear people say that, but you don't know until it's your child. Like you, like I've taught kids who had, who had autism. I didn't even know they had autism until they handed me the IEP to sign for a re-eval, because the child, it was just, whatever. And like I said, Carrie doesn't have autism, but just saying, like, even kids with learning disabilities, I had kids with learning disabilities, didn't even know, like, they didn't care about their extended time on their, IEP, because they were some of my top students, like A plus students. Yes. So I was just like, you know what? If she has an IEP, oh well, she's still gonna get a regular diploma. Like I declare over her, like she's gonna go to college and career wherever she wants to do, and she's gonna be successful. Like I'm not like going to settle for, okay, this just how it's gonna be, woe is me, whatever. And I think, like, again, if she didn't even have these developmental delays, I still would have mom guilt. I had mom guilt back when she didn't have quote unquote developmental delays. Yes. When I went back to work, because I was like, somebody else gonna be around my child, and I was really like, this is my first child, and I'm just like, what is she really gonna know me? And then also not being able to breastfeed, which really broke my heart. And I was like, well, maybe me not being able to breastfeed, why she got the developmental delays. It was just so much going through my mind, like
so much goes through our mind, for sure.
And I definitely felt the guilt, but I feel like, again, guilt comes anyway. It's like a trick to try to come in and be like, you're not doing this, or if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're not doing enough, you're not providing a stable income for your child or future for your child, or you're not doing this. It really just tries to come in to confuse you. And moms, period, like this will like air before Mother's Day. Like y'all are the best. Like
we are.
No shade to a man, because we appreciate the dads, but moms,
they know. They'll say, they'll declare and decree themselves that the woman, does it all. Yeah. When it comes to the kids, not do it all in that sense, but like we are the it factor. Yeah. When it comes
and we
to
look at children. Everything, like every intricate factor that maybe they would miss, because we have a different perspective. Yeah. And then the thing is, you carried this child for 9 months. Or in my case, 8.5 months. Yeah. But you carried that child. You've grown. You've sung to that child. That child has heard your heartbeat on the inside. That child knows you.
Hello.
Like, and it is like emotional. Like I was emotional just the other day. Like my child's really finna be 3, and I was crying. Like, and then next she gonna be going to this, she gonna be going to prom. Like, I was just like, oh my God.
All these things are about to happen. Like, let me prepare myself.
She's just a baby.
Time slow down.
Yes. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's, like, moms, if you have a child with, disabilities and you would like to connect, comment on the podcast. It'll be, of course, in different mediums, but follow us on social media. Reach out to us via email, whatever you need to do, because I promise the community is definitely needed. Yes, for sure.
For sure.
But do you have anything?
I was just saying, like, there are more resources than meets the eye that we're taught. Yeah. So if there's anybody listening to this podcast and you feel like you're not getting the help that you deserve, or you're not even getting enough from your pediatrician or the therapist, please feel free to reach out to me. I fought this fight for 2 years now. I kind of like know how to work the system. I know how to get what I want and what I need for my child. It's a different type of way that you got to speak up when you're dealing with these people. Sadly, it's all about money. And even if you can't afford it, or if you can't get the free services or whatever, there's still help and support out there for you. And so I just want anybody listening to know your child doesn't have to have Down syndrome or autism, just any type of developmental delay Please stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Please reach out for help. The help ain't gotta come from the teachers or the doctors. It can come from anybody.
Yeah.
Most of my help has been received from strangers.
Yeah.
For me, just being vulnerable enough to make Facebook posts like, listen, I need help. I've been trying to get physical therapy for my son since he was 10 months.
Wow.
He just started physical therapy in the end of January of this year.
Wow.
That was a long battle and a long fight, to the point to where I reached out to Facebook and I got private services.
Wow.
And in the midst of me doing private services, my son just so happened to have an appointment with his gastro doctor at Le Bonheur.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just venting to her. And she said, I know you live in DeSoto County, but we offer those services here. I said, I've tried. I've been on a waiting list. I've gotten a runaround. It's all about who you know.
Yeah.
She said, give me a couple of days and I will have Aiden in physical therapy. And guess what? She delivered on that.
Wow.
I have been trying since Aiden was 10 months to get him physical therapy, because the occupational therapist told me I've done all I can do in the crawl area and trying to help him walk. He needs physical therapy.
Yeah. And occupation and physical, some of their things, like they were telling me, for the ones who are doing for Carrie school, they were like, they kind of go hand in hand in some aspects. But they're still separate, different entities, and like fine motor skills, this, but it's like all of these, like the scripture says, all things work together. Literally, all these therapies work together. Like the speech is tied to the physical, is tied to all of it, is a part of the development, the brain development,
the body.
Yeah,
absolutely,
it is. Yeah. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
Joining our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This has been season 2, episode 1. We started with a bang, from mother to mother, dealing with children with disabilities. Thank you for listening.